Master Sergeant Carlos Rivera had been leading the morning PT formation for 3 years, watching hundreds of soldiers push through their daily fitness routines on the parade ground. But when mortar rounds started falling during what should have been a routine physical training session, and his radio crackled with physical challenge protocol, base attack imminent, he had 90 seconds to transform 200 sweating trainees into a defensive fighting force. The morning of September 15th had started like any other at Fort Liberty, North Carolina. At 0530 hours, Master Sergeant Carlos Rivera stood at the edge of the main parade ground, clipboard in hand, preparing to lead the largest physical training formation of the week. 200 soldiers from various units across the base had assembled for the mandatory fitness training that kept America's military forces in peak physical condition. Carlos had been the base's senior physical training instructor for 3 years, a role that combined his passion for fitness with his expertise in military leadership. At 34, he maintained the same physical standards he demanded from soldiers half his age, leading every exercise from the front and never asking his trainees to do anything he couldn't demonstrate himself. His morning PT sessions were legendary for their intensity and effectiveness, consistently producing soldiers who exceeded Army fitness standards. The formation spread across the parade ground in perfect ranks, soldiers arranged by height and unit affiliation in the precise military order that made large group exercises manageable. The morning air carried the familiar sounds of military life: boots on asphalt, cadence calls, and the rhythmic breathing of soldiers preparing for an hour of demanding physical training. "Listen up, warriors," Carlos called out, his voice carrying across the formation with the authority that came from years of military leadership. "Today we're focusing on combat conditioning, exercises designed to build the strength and endurance you'll need in operational environments. We'll start with warm-up stretches, move through calisthenics, and finish with a 3-mile formation run." The soldiers responded with a disciplined enthusiasm that marked professional military units. These weren't reluctant civilians forced into exercise. They were volunteers who had chosen military service and understood that physical fitness could mean the difference between mission success and failure, between coming home alive and not coming home at all. Carlos began the session with dynamic stretching exercises designed to prepare muscles for intense activity while reducing injury risk. The formation moved in unison through arm circles, leg swings, and torso rotations, their movements synchronized by Carlos's cadence calls and demonstration. The routine was choreographed through years of experience, optimized to maximize fitness benefits while minimizing time away from other military duties. "High knees, double time," Carlos commanded, and 200 soldiers instantly shifted into the rapid, knee-lifting exercise that built cardiovascular endurance and leg strength. The sound of boots hitting asphalt created a rhythmic drumbeat that echoed across the parade ground, accompanied by the controlled breathing of soldiers pushing their physical limits. For 25 minutes, the training proceeded exactly as planned. Carlos led the formation through push-ups, jumping jacks, mountain climbers, and burpees, exercises selected to build functional strength that translated directly to combat effectiveness. His constant encouragement and personal example motivated soldiers to exceed their perceived limitations, creating the mental toughness that complemented physical conditioning. The soldiers were midway through their 3rd set of flutter kicks when Carlos heard the sound that changed everything. The incoming mortar round made a distinctive whistling noise as it arced through the early morning sky, a sound Carlos recognized instantly from his 2 combat deployments in Afghanistan. But mortar attacks weren't supposed to happen at Fort Liberty, a secure installation thousands of miles from any active combat zone. For a split second, his mind struggled to process the contradiction between what he was hearing and where he was standing. The explosion answered his confusion with devastating clarity. The round impacted 150 meters from the formation, sending dirt and debris skyward in a fountain of destruction that confirmed Carlos's worst fears. This wasn't a training exercise or an accident at a nearby impact area. Fort Liberty was under direct enemy attack, and 200 soldiers were lying exposed on open ground in perfect formation for follow-up strikes. Carlos's military training overrode the moment all stations, this is Base Defense Operations Center. Physical Challenge Protocol is now active. Base is under hostile mortar attack. All personnel implement immediate defensive measures. Repeat, Physical Challenge Protocol is active. Physical Challenge Protocol was the emergency procedure for situations where large formations of soldiers were caught in the open during enemy attacks. The protocol called for immediate dispersal, assumption of defensive positions, and organized counterattack if circumstances permitted. What made the situation unique was that the soldiers were already organized in formation under competent leadership. They just needed a transition from physical training to combat operations. Formation, listen up. Carlos's voice cut through the chaos with command authority that instantly focused 200 pairs of eyes on him. We are under enemy mortar attack. Physical Challenge Protocol is in effect. We are now a combat formation. Squad leaders, take charge of your personnel and establish defensive positions using available cover. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Soldiers who had been focused on fitness exercises instantly shifted into combat mode, their training taking over as they sought cover behind buildings, vehicles, and other structures around the parade ground. The disciplined formation that had been perfect for PT became a tactical dispersal pattern that minimized casualties from indirect fire. A second mortar round impacted closer to the formation, approximately 75 meters from Carlos's position. The explosion sent shrapnel whistling overhead, confirming that the attack was targeted and deliberate rather than random harassment fire. Some squad leaders report status and personnel accountability. Carlos transmitted through his radio headset, using the communication equipment that was standard for PT instructors coordinating large formations. I need immediate casualty reports and defensive position status. The responses came back quickly and professionally. Despite the shock of sudden combat, squad leaders were maintaining control of their soldiers and implementing defensive procedures exactly as their training had prepared them to do. No casualties had been sustained in the initial attacks, and all personnel were accounted for and in cover positions. Base Defense Operations Center, this is PT Formation Alpha. Carlos transmitted to the command post responsible for base security. I have 200 personnel dispersed in defensive positions around the main parade ground. Request guidance on enemy threat assessment and counterattack procedures. PT Formation Alpha confirmed enemy mortar team operating from approximately 2,000 meters northeast of your position. Additional hostile forces may be present. Maintain defensive posture until counter-battery fire can neutralize the threat. Carlos processed the tactical information while studying the terrain around the parade ground. The enemy mortar position was beyond the range of small arms fire, but if additional hostile forces were present, his dispersed formation could become a base of fire for defensive operations while heavier weapons dealt with the indirect fire. A third mortar round confirmed the enemy's tactical competence. It landed directly where the formation had been standing 3 minutes earlier. If Carlos hadn't immediately dispersed his soldiers, the attack would have caused massive casualties among personnel who had been focused on physical training rather than combat operations. All squad leaders maintain security and prepare for possible ground assault, Carlos commanded. Enemy may attempt to exploit mortar attack with direct assault forces. Remember your training and trust your equipment. For the next 15 minutes, Carlos coordinated the defensive actions of 200 soldiers who had transformed from PT participants into a combat-ready formation. His fitness training background proved invaluable as he moved between positions, ensuring that soldiers maintained the physical and mental endurance necessary for sustained defensive operations. The mortar attacks continued sporadically, but the enemy's accuracy decreased as American counter-battery fire began engaging their positions. Carlos watched with professional satisfaction as his soldiers demonstrated the physical fitness and mental toughness that made American military forces effective in crisis situations. When the all-clear signal finally came, indicating that enemy forces had been neutralized or driven off, Carlos conducted accountability procedures to ensure all personnel were safe and accounted for. The morning PT session that had been interrupted by enemy fire had become an impromptu demonstration of how physical training translated directly to combat effectiveness. Formation Alpha, this is Base Defense Operations Center. Threat has been neutralized. Stand down from physical challenge protocol and return to normal operation. Carlos looked out over the parade ground where debris from mortar impacts marked the spots where his soldiers had been exercising 20 minutes earlier. The attack had been defeated through the combination of disciplined leadership, physical conditioning, and tactical training that defined professional military forces. Outstanding work today, warriors, Carlos announced to the reassembled formation. You've just demonstrated why we maintain physical fitness standards and practice tactical procedures. Today's PT session may not have gone as planned, but you've proven that fit soldiers are combat-ready soldiers. As the soldiers dispersed to their regular duties, Carlos reflected on how quickly routine physical training had become life-or-death defensive operations. His role as fitness instructor had prepared him to lead soldiers through challenging physical activities, but the same leadership skills had proven essential when those soldiers needed to fight for their lives. Master Sergeant Carlos Rivera had started his morning planning to improve his soldiers' physical fitness. Instead, he had led them through their first combat action on American soil, proving that the connection between physical training and combat readiness was more than theoretical. It was the foundation of military effectiveness. Physical challenge protocol had been successfully executed, and 200 soldiers had learned that their daily PT sessions weren't just about passing fitness tests. They were about being ready to fight and win when their nation called upon them to defend freedom itself.